The conference room at Park Industries' Manhattan offices buzzes with the sharp energy of high-stakes business. Zuri Johnson stands at the head of the polished mahogany table, her architectural blueprints spread like battle plans across its surface. The fluorescent lights catch the determined gleam in her dark eyes as she faces a room full of skeptical executives. All men, all older, all visibly questioning why a young black woman is presenting the most ambitious urban development project in the company's history. The Henderson District revitalization isn't just about buildings. Zuri's voice cuts through the tension, each word precisely calculated. It's about creating a community that bridges cultures, economic classes, and generations. Her hands move with practiced confidence over the detailed sketches, but her heart pounds against her ribs. This contract could change everything. Pay off her family's mounting debt, establish her architectural firm, prove to everyone who ever doubted her that she belongs in rooms like this. At the far end of the table, a figure shifts in the shadows. Minjun Park, dressed in an understated charcoal suit that costs more than most people's monthly salary, watches her with an intensity that makes her skin prickle with awareness. She knows him only as Mr. Park from the investment team, the quiet Korean man who asked thoughtful questions during her preliminary pitch 3 weeks ago, who somehow made her feel seen rather than scrutinized. Ms. Johnson, the lead executive interrupts, his tone carrying the particular brand of condescension she's learned to armor herself against. This is a $50 million project. What makes you think? What makes me qualified? Zuri's interruption is sharp, fearless. Beyond my MIT degree, my 7 years of experience, and the fact that I've lived in communities like Henderson my entire life. The room falls silent. She can feel Minjun's eyes on her, but she doesn't dare look at him. Not now, when everything depends on her strength. I don't just design buildings. I design hope. The silence stretches until Minjun's quiet voice breaks it. I'd like to hear more about the community integration aspect. His English carries the faintest trace of an accent that somehow makes her chest tighten with inexplicable warmth. But as Zuri launches into her detailed explanation, she has no idea that the man listening so intently is not just another investment team member. She doesn't know that Park Min-jun is the heir to one of Korea's largest chaebols, that his family's business empire spans 3 continents, or that his mother has already arranged his engagement to a woman he's never loved. Most crucially, she doesn't know that accepting this contract will bind their lives together in ways neither of them could imagine, and that in 6 months, she'll be walking down an aisle toward him while both their families watch in stunned disapproval, having discovered that sometimes the heart recognizes what the mind has yet to understand. The executive's phone buzzes. He glances at it, frowns, then looks directly at Minjun with barely concealed deference. Sir, your assistant says it's urgent. Zuri's breath catches. Sir? But before she can process the implications, Minjun is standing, his composed mask slipping just enough for her to glimpse something raw and conflicted in his expression. If you've ever wondered whether true love can survive family disapproval, financial pressure, and cultural differences, or if you believe that some connections transcend every barrier society puts between 2 hearts, then you'll want to stay with this story. Subscribe now, because what happens next will challenge everything you think you know about destiny, family loyalty, and the price of following your heart. 3 hours after the contract meeting, Zuri sits in her cramped studio apartment in Queens, staring at the formal agreement that could save her family from financial ruin. The Henderson project papers feel impossibly heavy in her hands, each clause representing a future she's afraid to want, too desperately. Her phone buzzes with the familiar pattern of her mother's ringtone. Zuri hesitates. She knows exactly what Dorothy Johnson will say about the Korean client, the same warnings she's been giving since Zuri started working in corporate architecture. Those people keep to themselves, baby. Don't go getting ideas above your station. Instead of answering, Zuri grabs her jacket and heads for the door. The October evening air in Manhattan carries the promise of rain, and the streets pulse with their usual energy. She finds herself walking toward the food truck district near Washington Square Park, drawn by a craving she can't quite name. The small Korean BBQ truck glows like a beacon in the gathering dusk, its awning already dotted with the first drops of rain. And there, incongruously alone at one of the plastic tables, sits Min-jun Park. Gone is the expensive suit from the meeting. He wears dark jeans and a simple black sweater that makes him look younger, more approachable, more human. "Mr. Park?" Zuri approaches cautiously, clutching the signed contract against her chest. "What are you doing here?" He looks up, and for a moment, his carefully controlled expression completely falls away. "I could ask you the same thing." There's something different about his voice here, away from the corporate environment, warmer, more genuine. "Please sit, and call me Min-jun. I think we're past formalities now that we're going to be working together." Zuri slides onto the plastic chair across from him, acutely aware of how the approaching rain has started to create an intimate cocoon around their small table. "I needed to think. That contract, it's bigger than anything I've handled before. Are you nervous?" Min-jun's question carries no judgment, only curiosity. "Terrified," she admits, surprising herself with the honesty. "My family thinks I'm crazy for taking on something this ambitious. They keep reminding me about all the ways it could go wrong." She pauses, studying his face in the warm light from the food truck. "What about you? Don't you have family opinions to deal with?" Something shadows crosses Min-jun's features. Korean families, we have very specific expectations. Sometimes those expectations don't leave room for personal choice. He signals to the food truck owner, who brings over 2 steaming containers of bulgogi and rice. "But tonight, I'm just a man sharing dinner with a brilliant architect. No expectations, no families, no corporate hierarchy." The rain begins in earnest, drumming against the awning above them. Other customers scatter, but Zuri and Min-jun remain, sharing the meal and talking about everything except business. She learns that he studied at Stanford, that he speaks 4 languages, that he finds American corporate culture both fascinating and exhausting. He learns that she grew up in Detroit, that she designs buildings the same way other people write poetry, that she's never been to Korea but dreams of seeing the traditional architecture there. "I have an idea," Min-jun says when they've finished eating. The rain has intensified, turning the streets into rivers of reflected neon. "There's a 24-hour coffee shop 6 blocks from here. They have the best Korean pastries in the city." "In this weather?" Zuri gestures at the downpour. "I have an umbrella." He produces a large black umbrella from beside his chair. "Unless you're afraid of getting a little wet." The walk to the coffee shop becomes an adventure. Min-jun holds the umbrella carefully over both of them, but the wind keeps shifting, and they end up pressed close together, laughing as they navigate the flooded sidewalks. When they finally duck into the warm, bright cafe, they're both breathless and slightly damp, and Zuri realizes she hasn't felt this alive in months. "This is my favorite place in the city," Min-jun confesses as they settle into a corner booth with coffee and pastries. "I know it doesn't look like much, but it reminds me of a cafe near my university in Seoul. Sometimes I come here when I need to remember who I am beneath all the complications." "Complications?" Zuri probes gently. Min-jun's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. Family business can be consuming. Sometimes it feels like every decision I make affects dozens of other people. It's easy to lose track of what you actually want versus what's expected of you. He looks directly at her, and she feels that strange chest-tightening sensation again. "What about you? Do you always know what you want?" "I used to think so," Zuri admits. "I wanted to be the best architect I could be, prove that talent matters more than background or connections. But lately," she trails off, uncertain how to articulate the growing sense that her life is on the verge of a major transformation. "But lately?" Min-jun prompts. "But lately I feel like I'm standing at the edge of something huge and unknown, and I don't know whether to step forward or run in the opposite direction." The words come out in a rush, and she immediately feels exposed, vulnerable. Min-jun reaches across the table, his fingers brushing hers. The contact is brief, probably meaningless, but it sends electricity up her arm. "Maybe," he says quietly. The best decisions are the ones that scare us the most. When they finally leave the cafe at nearly midnight, the rain has stopped, and the city sparkles around them like a fairy tale. Min-jun walks her to the subway entrance, both of them moving more slowly than necessary, reluctant to end this strange, perfect evening. "Zuri," he says as she reaches for her Metro card. "I know this might be inappropriate, given our working relationship, but would you have dinner with me tomorrow? Somewhere that isn't a food truck or a corporate conference room." Every rational thought in her head screams warnings about workplace relationships, about getting involved with a client, about the dozen ways this could complicate the most important project of her career. But looking into his dark eyes, she finds herself nodding. "I'd like that," she says. "But Min-jun, what happened tonight? Sharing dinner and coffee and walking in the rain. This isn't how you usually interact with architects on your projects, is it?" He's quiet for a long moment, and when he speaks, his voice carries in weight she doesn't understand. "No," he admits. "It's not. And I think that's exactly why I can't stop thinking about it. About you." As Zuri descends into the subway, her heart pounding with anticipation and terror in equal measure, she has no idea that Min-jun is already pulling out his phone to call his assistant in Seoul, preparing to set boundaries with his family that he's never dared establish before. But what she also doesn't know is that tomorrow's dinner will be interrupted by a phone call that changes everything, and forces both of them to confront the truth about who they really are and what they're willing to risk for love. The restaurant Min-jun chooses for their dinner date is intimate and understated. A small Italian place in the village with exposed brick walls and candlelit tables that seem designed for meaningful conversations. Zuri arrives 5 minutes early, wearing a simple black dress that makes her feel confident without trying too hard, and finds Min-jun already waiting for her in a corner booth. "I was nervous you might change your mind," he admits, as she slides into the seat across from him. He looks different tonight, more relaxed, wearing a dark blue button-down that brings out his eyes. His usually perfect hair slightly tousled, as if he's been running his fingers through it. "I almost did," Zuri confesses. "About 6 times between getting dressed and getting in the taxi. This is complicated, isn't it? You being my client and all." "Incredibly complicated," Min-jun agrees, signaling the waiter for wine. "But I haven't been able to stop thinking about last night, about you, about how easy it felt to just talk. When was the last time you had a conversation that made you forget what time it was?" Zuri considers this as the waiter pours their wine, a bottle that probably costs more than her monthly subway pass, though Min-jun orders it as casually as if it were house red. "I can't remember," she admits. "Most of my conversations lately are either about work or about why I should be more practical about my career choices." "Your family doesn't support your architecture dreams?" Min-jun asks gently. "They support me," Zuri clarifies quickly. "They're just worried. My parents both work 2 jobs to make ends meet. My younger brother is in community college, and there are always bills that need paying. When I told them I was starting my own firm instead of taking a safe corporate job, they thought I'd lost my mind." She pauses, taking a sip of wine that tastes like liquid velvet. "They keep reminding me that people like us don't usually get fairy tale endings." "People like us?" Min-jun's expression sharpens with something that looks like recognition. "Working class, black, from Detroit." Zuri meets his gaze directly. "People who have to fight for every opportunity, who can't afford to take risks that don't pay off. What about you? Does your family support your career choices?" Min-jun is quiet for a long moment, his fingers toying with his wine glass. "My family has very specific plans for my life," he says finally. "Career, marriage, children, business succession. It's all been mapped out since I was a child. Supporting my choices isn't really part of the equation when the choices have already been made for me." "That sounds suffocating," Zuri says softly. "It is, but it's also safe, in its way. No uncertainty, no risk of failure, no need to figure out who you are when everything is predetermined." He looks up at her, and there's something almost desperate in his expression. Do you know what it's like to be 34 years old and realize you've never made a single important decision for yourself? Zuri reaches across the table, covering his hand with hers. The gesture feels natural, necessary. It's not too late, she says. You're making decisions now. You chose to have dinner with me. You chose to share that. Those might seem small, but they're yours. Are they? Minjun's voice drops to barely above a whisper. Or am I just rebelling like a teenager, making choices that will hurt innocent people just because I can? Before Zuri can ask what he means, Minjun's phone buzzes against the table. He glances at it, and his entire body goes rigid. I'm sorry, he says, his voice suddenly formal, distant. I have to take this. He answers in rapid Korean, his tone respectful but strained. Even without understanding the language, Zuri can hear the tension, can see the way Minjun's shoulders tighten with each exchange. When he finally hangs up, he looks like a different person. Older, more burdened. I have to go, he says, signaling for the check. I'm sorry, Zuri. Family emergency. Is everything okay? Zuri asks, though she can see clearly that it's not. My mother is flying to New York tomorrow, Minjun says, his voice carefully controlled. She's not happy about some recent business decisions. She wants to discuss my future in person. The waiter brings the check, and Zuri watches Minjun pull out a black credit card. Not the kind of card that comes with spending limits, she realizes with a start. Everything about him suddenly seems different. The expensive watch she hadn't noticed before, the way the restaurant staff defer to him, the casual ease with which he handles what's clearly an expensive meal. Minjun, she says carefully as they walk toward the street. What exactly do you do at Park Industries? He stops walking, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, and for a moment she thinks he won't answer. It's complicated, he says finally. Everything about you is complicated, isn't it? Zuri's voice carries a note of frustration. The mysterious family expectations, the late-night phone calls, the way you talk about business decisions like they're life and death matters. What aren't you telling me? Minjun turns to face her fully, and in the glow of the streetlights, she can see the internal battle playing out across his features. Zuri, what would you say if I told you that dating me could change your life in ways you can't imagine, and not necessarily in good ways? I'd say that sounds like the kind of warning that makes a smart woman run in the opposite direction. Zuri replies honestly. But I'd also say that the best things in life usually come with risks. And if I told you that my family would never accept you, that they'd see you as a threat to everything they've built? His voice is raw, vulnerable. Zuri feels a cold knot form in her stomach. Are you trying to break up with me before we've even started dating? I'm trying to protect you, Minjun says urgently. From me, from my family, from a situation that's bigger and more complicated than you realize. Then why don't you explain it to me? Zuri challenges. Stop talking in riddles and just tell me the truth. Who are you really, Minjun Park? For a moment, she thinks he's going to tell her. She can see him wrestling with the decision, can almost feel the words forming. But then his phone rings again, and the moment shatters. I have to go, he says after a brief, tense conversation in Korean. Zuri, He stops, looking at her with an expression of longing and regret that makes her chest ache. I'll see you at the project meetings. We should probably keep things professional from now on. He hails a taxi and is gone before she can respond, leaving her standing on the sidewalk with a dozen questions and a growing certainty that Minjun Park is not at all who he appears to be. As Zuri rides the subway home, replaying every moment of their conversation, she makes a decision that will change everything. Tomorrow, she's going to find out exactly who Minjun Park really is, even if the truth destroys whatever's growing between them. But what she discovers will be far more shocking than she could have imagined, and will force her to choose between the safety of ignorance and the dangerous power of love that refuses to be contained by family expectations or social barriers. Sarah Mitchell has been Zuri's best friend since their MIT days, and she possesses the particular combination of technical skills and fierce loyalty that makes her the perfect person to call when you need to investigate a mysterious Korean businessman who's making you question everything you thought you knew about love and risk. You want me to do what now? Sarah's voice crackles through Zuri's phone as she paces her apartment at 7 in the morning, still in her pajamas and fueled by too much coffee and too little sleep. I need you to help me figure out who Min-jun Park really is, Zuri repeats. There's something he's not telling me, and after last night... She trails off, remembering the way he'd looked at her before disappearing into that taxi, like he was saying goodbye to something precious he could never have. Okay, but why don't you just ask him directly? Sarah's practical nature has always been both a blessing and a frustration in their friendship. I tried. He gave me some vague warning about how dating him could change my life, how his family would never accept me, and then ran away when his mother called. Zuri stops pacing and stares out her window at the gray October morning. Sarah, I think he might be married. Married? Sarah's tone sharpens with protective instinct. Zuri, please tell me you didn't sleep with him. No, we just had dinner. But there's something about the way he talks about family expectations, about his life being predetermined. Zuri sinks onto her couch, pulling her knees to her chest. What if he's trying to let me down easy? What if this whole connection I thought we had was just me projecting? Or, Sarah says in the gentle tone she reserves for Zuri's moments of self-doubt, what if he's telling the truth, and there really are complications you don't understand yet? Give me his full name and his company. I'll do some research. 2 hours later, Sarah calls back with a tone Zuri has never heard before, a mixture of awe, concern, and barely contained excitement. Zuri, you need to sit down. I am sitting down. Sit down more. Like, lie down. On the floor. Sarah takes a deep breath. Your mysterious Korean businessman? He's not just any businessman. Park Min-jun is the heir to Park Industries, one of the largest chaebols in South Korea. We're talking about a business empire worth approximately $15 billion. The world tilts around Zuri. 15... what? Billion. With a B. Hotels, construction, technology, shipping, telecommunications. They own pieces of everything. And Min-jun isn't just some mid-level executive, Zuri. He's being groomed to take over the entire operation when his father retires. Sarah's voice grows more urgent. But here's the really complicated part. According to Korean business news from last month, his engagement to Yoo Jin-ai, daughter of another major chaebol family, is supposed to be announced before the end of the year. Zuri feels like she's been punched in the stomach. He's engaged? Not officially, but it's been in the works for years. It's one of those business alliance marriages, joining two family empires. The Korean media has been speculating about it for months. Sarah pauses. Zuri, this man you've been having romantic dinners with? He's basically Korean royalty. And if the engagement rumors are true, he's completely unavailable. Zuri sets the phone down and stares at the ceiling, trying to process this information. Everything about their interactions suddenly makes sense. His expensive clothes, his casual handling of the restaurant bill, the way he talked about family expectations and predetermined futures, and the way he'd looked at her last night, like he was memorizing her face. Zuri, are you still there? I'm here, she says quietly, picking up the phone. Sarah, what am I supposed to do with this information? What you should do is run, Sarah says firmly. This isn't some meet-cute romance novel, Zuri. This is real life, with real consequences. These chaebol families don't mess around. If they see you as a threat to their business alliance. But what if he doesn't want the engagement? Zuri interrupts. What if that's what he was trying to tell me last night? Then he needs to figure that out without dragging you into the middle of an international family drama, Sarah replies. Think about it practically. Even if he breaks off the engagement, do you really think his family is going to welcome you with open arms? A Black American architect with student loans and a struggling business? The words hit like physical blows, even though Zuri knows Sarah is trying to protect her. So you're saying I'm not good enough for him? I'm saying that to his family. No one will ever be good enough for him except the person they've chosen. and fighting that system could destroy you both. Sarah's voice softens. Zuri, I know you care about him, but you have to ask yourself, is this connection worth potentially losing everything you've worked for? Because if this goes wrong, it won't just be your heart that gets broken. It could be your career, your reputation, your future. After ending the call, Zuri sits in her apartment for an hour, staring at the Henderson District contract that still lies on her coffee table. Everything is connected. The project, Min-jun, her financial stability, her family's future. One phone call to Park Industries, one decision to withdraw from the project, and she could extricate herself from this situation before it becomes more complicated. But as she reaches for her phone, it rings. Min-jun's name appears on the screen, and despite everything she's just learned, her heart leaps. Zuri. His voice sounds strained, exhausted. I know you probably have questions about last night. I know who you are. She interrupts quietly. Silence stretches between them for several seconds. What do you know? He asks finally. Park Industries. $15 billion. Heir to a chaebol empire. Arranged engagement to Yu Jin-ae. Each phrase feels like a small betrayal, an acknowledgement that everything between them has been built on incomplete truths. Zuri. Min-jun's voice cracks slightly. Were you ever going to tell me? She asks. Or was this all just some kind of rebellion against your predetermined life? Date the American architect? Have a little adventure before settling down with the appropriate Korean heiress? It's not like that, Min-jun says urgently. Zuri, please let me explain. Can you meet me? There's a park near your apartment, Flushing Meadows. I'll be by the Unisphere at noon. Why should I? Zuri asks, even though she already knows she will. Because, Min-jun says quietly, you're the first person I've ever met who made me want to choose my own life. And I think I might be falling in love with you. The line goes dead, leaving Zuri staring at her phone with a heart that refuses to listen to reason, and a mind that can't stop calculating the cost of loving someone whose world operates by completely different rules. But as she grabs her jacket and heads for the door, she doesn't know that Mrs. Park has already landed in New York, that photographers are following Min-jun's movements, or that by tonight, their private struggle will become a very public scandal. Flushing Meadows Corona Park spreads out under the gray October sky like a vast canvas waiting to be painted with difficult truths. Zuri arrives at the Unisphere 10 minutes early, needing time to compose herself before facing Min-jun with the knowledge of who he really is. The giant steel globe rises above her like a monument to ambition and possibility, and she wonders if she's about to become another casualty of dreams that grow too large for reality to contain. Min-jun appears exactly at noon, but he looks different, older, more formal, dressed in a dark wool coat that probably costs more than her monthly rent. The easy warmth from their previous encounters has been replaced by something guarded, careful. Two men in subtle dark suits follow at a respectful distance, and Zuri realizes with a start that these must be bodyguards. You brought security, she observes as he approaches. I didn't want to, but my mother insisted. Min-jun's voice carries an exhaustion that goes deeper than lack of sleep. She arrived this morning. She knows about our dinners. How? Zuri's stomach clenches with sudden fear. She has people who keep track of my activities. When I started deviating from my usual patterns, spending time in places I don't normally go. He trails off, looking at her with an expression that's part apology, part desperate longing. Zuri, I need you to understand something. What's happening between us? It's not a game for me. It's not some rich man's rebellion or a temporary diversion. Then what is it? Zuri challenges. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you lied to me about everything fundamental about your life. I didn't lie, Min-jun says urgently. I didn't tell you the whole truth. And I know how that sounds. But you have to understand. My life isn't my own. Every decision I make affects hundreds of employees, thousands of shareholders, two families' business empires. When I met you, when we started talking, it was the first time in years I felt like I could just be myself. Not the heir, not the future CEO, just Minjun. They start walking along one of the park's winding paths, the bodyguards maintaining their discreet distance. The autumn air carries the scent of fallen leaves and the distant promise of winter, and Zuri pulls her jacket tighter around herself. "Tell me about the engagement," she says quietly. Minjun's step falters. She's a good person. Intelligent, accomplished, from a family that complements ours perfectly from a business standpoint. Our parents have been planning this alliance for over a decade. Do you love her? The question costs Zuri something to ask. I care about her. I respect her. But love? Minjun stops walking and turns to face her fully. Zuri, I've never felt for anyone what I feel when I'm with you. Whatever this is between us, it's the first time I've understood why people write poetry about love, why they make impossible choices, why they risk everything for another person. But you're still going to marry her, Zuri states, not a question. I don't know, Minjun admits, and the honesty in his voice is devastating. If I refuse, it doesn't just affect me. Jinae's family has invested years in this merger. My family's company has financial obligations tied to the alliance. Breaking the engagement could impact thousands of jobs, crash stock prices, destroy relationships that took generations to build. Zuri feels tears prick at her eyes, though whether from anger or heartbreak, she can't tell. So what was the point of telling me you're falling in love with me? What did you want me to say to that? I wanted you to know that you matter, Minjun says desperately. I wanted you to know that meeting you has changed everything about how I see my life, my choices, my future. I wanted you to know that if things were different. But they're not different, Zuri interrupts. This is your reality. And I'm just... What? A footnote in the story of the dutiful heir who had one moment of rebellion before doing what was expected of him? You're not a footnote. Minjun's voice is fierce now. You're the woman who made me realize I've been living someone else's life. You're the first person who ever looked at me and saw just a man, not a bank account or a business opportunity or a strategic alliance. His phone rings, cutting through his words with the harsh insistence of reality. Minjun glances at it, and his face goes completely pale. My mother, he says tersely. She's waiting for me at my apartment. Zuri, I have to go. But please don't make any decisions about us yet. Give me time to figure this out. How much time? Zuri asks. How long do you expect me to wait while you decide whether I'm worth disrupting your predetermined life? Minjun reaches for her hands, his fingers warm despite the cool air. I know I don't have the right to ask for anything from you. I know this is unfair and complicated and potentially dangerous for both of us. But Zuri, what we have, it's real. It's the most real thing in my life. Please don't give up on it yet. He leans forward and kisses her forehead, a gesture so tender and desperate that it breaks her heart. Then he's walking away, his bodyguards flanking him, leaving her standing alone beneath the Unisphere with the weight of impossible choices settling on her shoulders. As Zuri watches his retreating figure, she pulls out her phone and dials Sarah's number. I'm going to keep seeing him, she says when Sarah answers. Zuri, I know all the reasons why I shouldn't. I know it's dangerous and complicated and probably doomed. But Sarah, what if he's telling the truth? What if this really is love, and I walk away because I'm too scared to fight for it? And what if it destroys you? Sarah asks gently. Zuri looks up at the Unisphere, this monument to human ambition, and the dream that anything is possible. Then at least I'll know I tried. At least I'll know I was brave enough to love someone, even when the odds were impossible. Okay, Sarah says after a long pause. But if you're going to do this, you need to be smart about it. You need to protect yourself, your business, your family. And Zuri, you need to be prepared for the possibility that love might not be enough. As Zuri walks home through the darkening park, she doesn't notice the photographers with telephoto lenses capturing her every move, or the black sedan that follows her at a careful distance. But by tomorrow morning, Her face will be on the front page of 3 Korean newspapers, and the private battle for Min-jun's heart will become a very public war that threatens to destroy everything both families hold dear. Zuri wakes to the insistent buzzing of her phone at 6:30 in the morning. Through the fog of sleep, she registers Sarah's voice, tight with panic, and something that might be excitement. Zuri, you need to get online. Now. Check Korean news sites. I'm texting you the links. Sarah, what? Zuri begins. But the line is already dead. She stumbles to her laptop, still wearing the oversized t-shirt she'd fallen asleep in, and clicks on the first link Sarah sends. The headline is in Korean, but the photographs are unmistakably clear. Min-jun kissing her forehead in Flushing Meadows Park, his hands holding hers, the two of them walking together with obvious intimacy. The telephoto lens has captured every nuance of their interaction, the way she'd looked up at him with trust and longing, the desperate tenderness in his expression, the body language of 2 people falling in love. Her hands shake as she runs the headline through Google Translate. Park Industries heir in secret romance with American architect. Family alliance in jeopardy. The phone rings again. This time Min-jun's number flashing on the screen. Zuri answers with a voice that doesn't sound like her own. Have you seen? She begins. Yes. Min-jun's voice is strained, distant. Zuri, I'm so sorry. I should have been more careful, should have anticipated. Are you okay? She interrupts, suddenly more concerned about him than about the implications for herself. My mother is not pleased. There's a bitter laugh in his voice. That's an understatement. She's demanding I fly back to Seoul immediately, that I issue a public statement denying any romantic involvement with you, that I announce my engagement to Jin-ai by the end of the week. Zuri sinks onto her couch, the weight of the situation settling over her like a heavy blanket. And what did you tell her? I told her I needed time to think. Min-jun pauses. Zuri, this changes everything. The media attention, the family pressure. It's going to get intense. Are you prepared for that? Before she can answer, there's a sharp knock at her apartment door. Through the peephole, she sees 2 people with cameras and notepads. Reporters, she realizes with a jolt of panic. They're here, she whispers into the phone. Reporters, at my apartment. Don't open the door, Min-jun says urgently. Don't say anything to them. I'm sending James to you. He'll help you get somewhere safe. Safe from what? Zuri asks. But the reporters are knocking again, more insistently. Ms. Johnson? A voice calls through the door. We're with Korea Daily News. We'd like to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Park Min-jun. Zuri's phone beeps with an incoming call. Her mother. Then another call from her brother Marcus. Then Sarah again. The notifications start coming in rapid succession, as people she hasn't heard from in months suddenly want to reach her. Min-jun, she whispers into the phone. I think this is bigger than we realized. I know. His voice is heavy with guilt and something that might be fear. Zuri, I need you to know. Whatever happens next, whatever my family does or says, what I told you yesterday was true. You're not a footnote in my story. You're the reason I finally want to write my own story instead of following someone else's script. The knock at the door becomes more persistent, and Zuri can hear multiple voices now. Her phone continues to buzz with incoming calls and text messages. Through her window, she can see a news van parked on the street below. I have to go, she says. I need to think about what this means, what I'm willing to handle. I understand, Min-jun says quietly. But Zuri, don't disappear on me, please. Whatever you decide, just don't disappear. After ending the call, Zuri sits in her apartment for 20 minutes, listening to the reporters outside her door, watching the news vans multiply on her street, feeling the weight of a choice she never asked to make. Her phone shows 17 missed calls from her mother, 12 from Marcus, 8 from her boss at the architectural firm where she occasionally takes freelance work. Finally, she calls her mother back. Zuri Elizabeth Johnson. Dorothy Johnson's voice crackles with a mixture of worry and exasperation that's been perfected over 29 years of motherhood. What in God's name have you gotten yourself into? I don't know, Mama, Zuri admits, surprising herself with the childhood form of address that slips out when she's scared. I really don't know. Baby, your face is on the internet. Marcus showed me the pictures on his computer. You're holding hands with some Korean man, and the headlines are talking about billions of dollars and family scandals. Dorothy's voice softens with maternal concern. Are you in some kind of trouble? Do you need money? Should I call your cousin Denise, the one who works for that lawyer? I'm not in trouble, exactly, Zuri says, though she's not entirely sure that's true. It's complicated, Mama. He's a good man, but his family situation is really difficult. Difficult how? Is he married? No, but he's supposed to be. It's an arranged marriage situation, business families, that kind of thing. Zuri realizes how inadequate this explanation sounds for the complexity of Chaebol culture and family obligations. There's a long pause. Zuri, baby, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I know you're smart, and I know you're strong. But sometimes smart, strong women make decisions with their hearts that their heads wouldn't make. Rich people, especially rich people from other countries, they play by different rules. And when their games go wrong, it's usually people like us who get hurt. But what if it's not a game, Mama? What if it's real? Then he needs to prove it by making choices that protect you, not expose you to this kind of circus, Dorothy says firmly. And you need to ask yourself whether you're ready to have your whole life examined by strangers, your family dragged into the spotlight, your career defined by who you're dating instead of what you've accomplished. After ending the call, Zuri makes a decision. She packs a small bag, slips out the back entrance of her building, and takes the subway to Sarah's apartment in Brooklyn. By the time James Park arrives at her building with instructions to help her, she's already gone, leaving only a text message for Minjun. I need time to think. Please respect that. But as the train carries her through the tunnel beneath the East River, Zuri doesn't know that her disappearance will trigger a chain of events that forces Minjun to make the most defining choice of his life. A choice that will either destroy everything his family has built, or prove that love really can conquer the most impossible odds. And she has no idea that in Seoul, Mrs. Park is already making moves that will bring this private battle into the most public arena possible, where the stakes are measured not just in hearts, but in billions of dollars and two families' legacies. Mrs. Park Hyejin sits in the penthouse suite of the Plaza Hotel, her back straight as a blade, her hands folded in her lap with the precise elegance that comes from 60 years of never allowing emotions to disturb her composure. The morning newspapers are spread across the mahogany table before her, Korean, American, and international publications, all carrying variations of the same story. Her son, heir to one of Korea's most powerful business empires, photographed in an intimate moment with a Black American architect. James Park, no relation, despite the shared surname, stands at respectful attention near the window, his tablet clutched in hands that betray none of the nervousness he feels. He has been Minjun's assistant for 5 years, and in that time, he's never seen Mrs. Park display the cold fury that radiates from her now like heat from a forge. Explain to me, she says in Korean, her voice carrying the particular tone that has made grown men weep in boardrooms. How my son came to be photographed holding hands with a woman whose existence threatens everything our family has built over 4 generations. Yomioni, James begins, using the formal address that acknowledges both her position and his respect. Minjun Si has been working closely with Ms. Johnson on the Henderson District project. Their professional relationship? Mrs. Park's laugh is sharp as winter wind. Do you think I'm a fool, James S.E.? Those photographs show a man in love, not a businessman conducting a meeting. She stands and walks to the window, gazing out at Central Park with eyes that see problems and solutions, never just scenery. How long? I believe they met approximately 3 weeks ago when she presented the Henderson project proposal. James admits reluctantly. 3 weeks. Mrs. Park repeats the words as if testing their weight. In 3 weeks, My son has managed to jeopardize a marriage alliance that has been in development for 8 years, threaten a merger worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and expose our family to international scandal. She turns from the window, and James sees something in her expression that makes him step back involuntarily. Where is she now? Ms. Johnson? I don't know, Amioni. Min Jun-si asked me to ensure her safety after the reporters appeared at her apartment, but when I arrived, she had already left. Find her, Mrs. Park commands. I don't care what resources it requires. Hire investigators, contact her family, monitor her credit cards, whatever it takes. I want to speak with this woman who thinks she can destroy what generations of Parks have built. James hesitates. Aomeoni, perhaps if you spoke with Min Jun-si first. My son, Mrs. Park interrupts, is clearly not thinking with his mind at the moment. Men his age sometimes confuse physical attraction with love, rebellion with romance. It's my responsibility to protect him from decisions that would ruin his life and the lives of everyone who depends on our family's success. She moves to the table and picks up one of the newspapers, studying the photograph with clinical detachment. She is pretty, Mrs. Park acknowledges. I can understand the appeal. But beauty fades, James S.E. Business empires, properly maintained, are eternal. My son will come to understand this once the infatuation passes and reality reasserts itself. And if he doesn't? James asks, immediately regretting the question when Mrs. Park's eyes sharpen on him. Then I will help reality reassert itself, she says quietly. Have you researched this woman's background thoroughly? James opens his tablet, calling up the file he's been assembling since receiving Mrs. Park's instructions the previous evening. Zuri Johnson, 29 years old, graduated from MIT with degrees in architecture and urban planning. She started her own firm 18 months ago, specializing in sustainable urban development. Her parents are Dorothy and William Johnson. He works for the Detroit Public Transportation System. She's a nurse at a community hospital. They have significant medical debt from Dorothy's cancer treatment 3 years ago, and the family home is currently in foreclosure proceedings. Mrs. Park's expression doesn't change, but something predatory flickers in her eyes. Financial pressure. Excellent. What about her business? Struggling, James admits. The Henderson project is by far her largest contract. Without it, her firm would likely have to declare bankruptcy within 6 months. So this young woman, facing personal and professional financial ruin, suddenly finds herself romantically involved with a billionaire. Mrs. Park sets down the newspaper with deliberate care. How convenient. Aomeoni, I've observed their interactions, and I believe Ms. Johnson's feelings for Min Jun-si are genuine. Genuine feelings and opportunistic behavior are not mutually exclusive, James S.E., Mrs. Park interrupts. A woman in her position would be a fool not to see the advantages of a relationship with my son. The question is whether she's naive enough to believe it could lead to marriage, or calculating enough to pursue it for immediate financial benefit. James wants to argue, wants to tell Mrs. Park about the way Zuri looks at Min Jun, not with the calculating gaze of a gold digger, but with the open vulnerability of someone falling in love despite her better judgment. But he knows Mrs. Park would dismiss such observations as sentimentality. What would you like me to do once I locate Ms. Johnson? James asks instead. Mrs. Park walks to the suite's writing desk and pulls out her personal checkbook. Not a corporate account, but her private funds, the money that buys silence and compliance when business negotiations fail. Arrange a meeting. Somewhere private, quiet, a place where we can speak woman to woman without interruption. And Min Jun-si is not to know about this meeting until after it's concluded, Mrs. Park says firmly. My son's heart may be clouded, but his mind is still sharp. He would try to interfere, and that would benefit no one. As James makes the necessary phone calls to set Mrs. Park's plan in motion, neither of them knows that Zuri Johnson is sitting in Sarah Mitchell's Brooklyn apartment, staring at her own phone as it displays 17 missed calls from an unknown number. A number that, if she knew its significance, would make her realize that the battle for her relationship with Min Jun is about to escalate into a war where the weapons are money, reputation, and the kind of power that can make people disappear from each other's lives without leaving fingerprints on. The devastation. But what Mrs. Park doesn't anticipate is that some hearts, once fully awakened to love, refuse to be bought, threatened, or reasoned into submission, and that the woman she's about to underestimate has survived challenges that make Chaebol family politics look like a gentle negotiation. Sarah's apartment in Park Slope feels like a sanctuary until the persistent knocking starts at 11 in the morning. Zuri has been hiding there for 2 days, ignoring the calls from unknown numbers, trying to process the reality of her situation, while Sarah brings her coffee and takeout containers and occasional pep talks that alternate between "follow your heart" and "run for your life." "You expecting anyone?" Sarah asks, peering through the peephole with the cautious paranoia of someone who's watched too many true crime documentaries. "No one knows I'm here except Min Jun, and I asked him not to." Zuri stops speaking when she sees Sarah's expression change. "It's an older Korean woman," Sarah whispers. "Elegant, expensive looking, and there's a man with her who looks like he could bench press a small car." Zuri's blood runs cold. "Mrs. Park." The knocking stops, replaced by a voice that carries the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Ms. Johnson, I know you're in there. My name is Park Hee-jin. I believe we need to discuss my son." Zuri and Sarah stare at each other in frozen silence. Then Sarah mouths, "What do you want to do?" Every instinct tells Zuri to ignore the door, to pretend she's not here, to avoid what will certainly be an unpleasant confrontation. But another part of her, the part that spent her entire life facing difficult conversations instead of running from them, knows that hiding will only delay the inevitable. "I'll speak with her," Zuri says quietly, walking to the door. "But Sarah, stay close, okay?" She opens the door to find a woman who is everything she expected and nothing she was prepared for. Mrs. Park Hye-jin is beautiful in the way that money and discipline create, not flashy, but undeniably powerful. Her dark hair is pulled into a perfect chignon. Her charcoal wool coat probably costs more than Zuri's rent, and her eyes hold the kind of intelligence that has spent decades turning problems into opportunities. "Ms. Johnson." Mrs. Park's English is precise, formal. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." "I didn't agree to anything," Zuri replies, but she steps aside to let the older woman enter. The bodyguard remains in the hallway, a silent reminder of the resources at Mrs. Park's disposal. Sarah hovers in the kitchen doorway, clearly ready to intervene if necessary, while Mrs. Park settles onto the couch with the kind of practiced elegance that makes even Sarah's expensive furniture look shabby by comparison. "May I offer you tea? Coffee?" Sarah asks with strained politeness. "Nothing, thank you." Mrs. Park's attention focuses entirely on Zuri. "Ms. Johnson, I'll be direct. My son believes he's in love with you. This belief is causing him to make decisions that will harm not only himself, but hundreds of families whose livelihoods depend on our business enterprises." "Your son is a grown man," Zuri says, settling into the chair across from Mrs. Park. "He can make his own decisions about his personal life." "Can he?" Mrs. Park's smile is sharp as a blade. "Tell me, Ms. Johnson, what do you know about Chaebol culture? About the obligations that come with inheriting a business empire that affects thousands of employees, hundreds of subsidiary companies, entire communities that depend on our success. I know that using family duty to control someone's personal choices is manipulative, regardless of the culture." Zuri responds. "Min Jun told me about the arranged marriage. He also told me that he's never been in love before now." "Love." Mrs. Park pronounces the word like she's discussing a mild case of food poisoning. "Ms. Johnson, I don't doubt that my son feels strongly about you. He's an intelligent, passionate man, and you're an attractive woman with an interesting mind. But love, real love, considers the consequences of its actions." She reaches into her purse and withdraws a leather folder. "I've done research on your situation. Your family's medical debt, your struggling business, your parents' home facing foreclosure. These are significant problems that would cause stress for anyone. Zuri feels her stomach clench with dread. What are you getting at? Mrs. Park opens the folder and removes a check, placing it on the coffee table between them. Zuri's eyes widen. It's made out to her for $500,000. This will cover your family's debts, establish your architectural firm on solid ground, and provide security for your future, Mrs. Park says calmly. In exchange, you will end your relationship with my son, withdraw from the Henderson District project, and relocate your business to another city. Portland and Seattle both have thriving architectural communities that would welcome your talents. You're trying to buy me off, Zuri says, her voice tight with anger and disbelief. I'm trying to offer you an alternative that benefits everyone involved, Mrs. Park corrects. My son will fulfill his obligations to his family and his fiancée. You will have financial freedom to pursue your career without the complications of a relationship that can only end in heartbreak. Your parents will keep their home. Everyone wins. Sarah steps forward from the kitchen. I think you need to leave. Mrs. Park doesn't even glance at Sarah. Her attention remains fixed on Zuri with laser focus. $500,000, Ms. Johnson. It's more money than your family has ever seen, enough to change your entire future. And all you have to do is stop interfering with my son's life. Stop interfering? Zuri's voice rises with indignation. I'm not some gold digger who targeted your son. We met by accident, and what's happening between us is real. Is it? Mrs. Park's tone sharpens. You're facing financial ruin, your family is losing their home, and suddenly you find yourself romantically involved with a billionaire. Forgive me if I question the coincidence. Zuri stands up abruptly, her hands shaking with rage. Get out! Ms. Johnson, please consider— Get out! Zuri's voice echoes through the small apartment. Take your money and your assumptions and get out of here. I am not for sale. Mrs. Park remains seated, her composure unshaken. Everyone has a price, Ms. Johnson. I've learned that in 40 years of business negotiations. Perhaps $500,000 isn't yours. She reaches into the folder again and produces another check. This one for $1 million. But surely this is— You're insane if you think— Zuri begins, but Mrs. Park cuts her off with a raised hand. Before you refuse, let me tell you what happens if you don't take this offer. Mrs. Park's voice drops to barely above a whisper, but somehow becomes more menacing. Park Industries will terminate the Henderson District contract, citing concerns about your firm's financial stability. I will ensure that no major developer in New York or anywhere else on the East Coast will work with you again. Your reputation will be destroyed, your business will fail, and your family will lose everything. You can't do that, Sarah says from the kitchen, her voice shaking with outrage. I can and I will, Mrs. Park replies without looking away from Zuri. I've built an empire by making difficult decisions, Ms. Johnson. Protecting my family's future is not difficult. It's necessary. Zuri stares at the 2 checks on the coffee table, her mind reeling. $1 million would solve every financial problem her family has ever faced. It would establish her architectural firm as a major player, provide security for her parents' retirement, pay for her brother's education. It would change everything. But it would also mean giving up Minjun. It would mean admitting that Mrs. Park is right, that their love is nothing more than a temporary infatuation that threatens to destroy lives and livelihoods. I need time to think, Zuri says finally. You have until tomorrow evening, Mrs. Park says, standing and smoothing her coat with practiced precision. The Henderson Project Board meeting is scheduled for Friday morning. If you haven't signed the papers by then, the contract will be terminated, and my other promises will begin to take effect. She walks to the door, then turns back one final time. Ms. Johnson, I don't take pleasure in this conversation. I genuinely believe you're a talented woman who deserves success. But my son's future, and the future of everyone who depends on our family's business, is more important than any personal relationship. I hope you'll make the wise choice. After the door closes behind her, Zuri and Sarah sit in stunned silence for several minutes. The checks remain on the coffee table like accusations, glowing white against the dark wood. She's bluffing, Sarah says finally. She has to be. She can't really destroy your career just because you're dating her son. Can't she? Zuri picks up one of the checks, staring at the impossible number of zeros. Sarah, do you know how many major construction projects Park Industries has investments in? How many developers would think twice about crossing them? So, what are you going to do? Sarah asks gently. Zuri's phone buzzes with a text from Minjun. I haven't heard from you in 2 days. Please call me. We need to talk. She stares at the message for a long moment, then at the checks, then at Sarah's worried face. Everything she's worked for, everything her family needs, sits on the coffee table in front of her. All she has to do is sign a paper, take the money, and walk away from the most intense connection she's ever felt with another human being. I don't know, Zuri admits. I honestly don't know. But what she doesn't realize is that Minjun has already made his own impossible choice, one that will either save their relationship or destroy his family's empire forever. And time is running out for both of them to decide whether love is worth the price they'll have to pay. Minjun stares at the engagement announcement draft that his mother's assistant has placed on his desk. Formal Korean and English text declaring his upcoming marriage to Yoo Jin-ae, complete with a photo of them together at last month's charity gala, where they'd maintained the careful distance of business acquaintances pretending to be romantic partners. The announcement is scheduled to run in major Korean newspapers and business journals tomorrow morning. His office at Park Industries' Manhattan headquarters occupies an entire floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city where he met Zuri just 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks that have completely rewritten his understanding of what it means to want something for himself. Now those same streets feel like a maze designed to keep him separated from the one person who makes him feel truly alive. James, he calls to his assistant, who enters with his usual efficient composure slightly strained around the edges. Have you been able to reach Zuri? No, sir. She's not answering calls or texts, and she hasn't returned to her apartment since the reporters appeared. James hesitates, then adds carefully, Sir, your mother asked me to arrange a meeting with Ms. Johnson yesterday. I believe they may have spoken. Minjun's blood runs cold. What kind of meeting? I don't know the details, but... James pulls out his tablet and shows Minjun a bank transfer record. This morning, Park Industries received a formal letter from Johnson Architecture withdrawing from the Henderson District project, effective immediately. The world tilts around Minjun. She withdrew from the project. The letter cites personal reasons and recommends that the company select one of the other firms that submitted proposals. James's voice is carefully neutral, but Minjun can see the concern in his expression. Sir, I think your mother may have made her an offer she couldn't refuse, Minjun finishes grimly. He knows his mother's methods, has seen her deploy them against business rivals and family members who threatened her vision of how the world should operate. The fact that she's turned those weapons on Zuri fills him with a rage so intense it surprises him. His phone rings, a call from Seoul. His father, the current chairman of Park Industries, calling for their scheduled weekly briefing. Minjun considers not answering, but 40 years of filial duty are difficult to overcome, even when every fiber of his being rebels against the conversation he knows is coming. Appa, he answers in Korean, using the informal term for father that acknowledges both affection and respect. Minjun. His father's voice carries the weight of exhaustion and disappointment. Your mother tells me you've been having personal difficulties that are affecting business decisions. My personal life shouldn't affect business, Minjun replies, switching to English in a small act of rebellion that he knows his father will understand as a signal of his emotional state. Your personal life became business the moment photographers captured you with that American woman, his father says, also switching to English. The Yu family is threatening to withdraw from the merger discussions. Do you understand what that means for our expansion into Southeast Asian markets? Minjun closes his eyes, feeling the familiar weight of family expectations settle on his shoulders like a lead blanket. I understand the business implications, Appa. But I also understand what it means to live your entire life according to other people's plans. And what would you prefer? To follow your heart into financial ruin? To destroy what 4 generations of our family have built because you've developed feelings for a woman you've known for 3 weeks? His father's voice sharpens with frustration. Min-jun, I know you think you're in love, but love, real love, doesn't ask you to sacrifice your family's welfare for temporary happiness. Temporary? Min-jun challenges. How do you know it's temporary? How do you know that Zuri isn't the person I'm supposed to spend my life with? Because, his father says, with the tired patience of a man who's had this conversation with himself decades ago. Love that requires you to abandon your duties, hurt innocent people, and betray your family's trust isn't love. It's selfishness dressed up in romantic language. The words hit Min-jun like physical blows because part of him recognizes the truth in them. Jinny doesn't deserve to be publicly humiliated by a broken engagement. The thousands of Park Industries employees don't deserve to have their job security threatened by his personal choices. The business partnerships that depend on family alliances shouldn't suffer because he fell in love with someone his family can't accept. What if I could find another way? Min-jun asks desperately. What if I could maintain the business relationships without the marriage alliance? How? His father challenges. The Yu family has invested years in this arrangement. Their daughter has been preparing to be your wife since she was 21. Their business expansion plans depend on merging our companies. What could you possibly offer them as compensation for that kind of betrayal? Min-jun stares out the window at the Manhattan skyline, searching for answers in the forest of glass and steel. I could step down as heir, he says quietly. The silence on the phone stretches for so long that Min-jun wonders if the connection has been lost. When his father finally speaks, his voice is barely above a whisper. What did you say? I could step down as heir to the company, Min-jun repeats, his voice growing stronger with each word. Let my cousin Jae-ho take over the succession planning. He's been groomed for a leadership role anyway, and he's already married into an appropriate family. The business alliances would be maintained. Jin-ae would be free to find someone who actually loves her, and I would be free to... To what? His father interrupts, his voice rising with incredulous anger. To abandon everything you were born to inherit? To throw away your education, your training, your responsibility to hundreds of thousands of people who depend on our company for their livelihoods? For what? For an American woman who withdrew from a business contract the moment my wife offered her money. The last words stopped Min-jun cold. What are you talking about? Your mother told me about her conversation with Ms. Johnson, his father continues, his voice heavy with disappointment. She offered the woman a substantial sum to end your relationship and relocate her business. According to your mother, Ms. Johnson was very interested in the financial arrangements. That's impossible, Min-jun says, but even as he speaks, doubt creeps into his voice. Why else would Zuri withdraw from the Henderson project? Why else would she refuse to return his calls? Is it? His father asks gently. Min-jun, I know this is painful, but perhaps it's better that you discover her true nature now, before you make irreversible decisions that would affect so many lives. After ending the call, Min-jun sits in his office for an hour, staring at the engagement announcement that will seal his fate if he doesn't act. Every rational thought tells him that his father is right, that a woman who truly loved him wouldn't have accepted money to walk away. But another part of him, the part that remembers the look in Zuri's eyes when she talked about her dreams, the way she'd challenged him to make his own choices instead of following other people's scripts, refuses to believe she could be bought. He makes a decision that will either save his relationship or confirm his family's worst suspicions about the woman he thought he loved. He's going to find Zuri and get the truth, whatever it costs him. But what he discovers will force both of them to confront the reality that sometimes love requires sacrifices so profound that they change the very foundation of who you believe yourself to be, and that the price of choosing each other might be higher than either of them is prepared to pay. Zuri hasn't slept in 36 hours. She sits in Sarah's living room, staring at the 2 checks that represent impossible choices. Financial security for her family versus the love that has awakened something she didn't even know was sleeping inside her. The morning sun streaming through the windows makes the numbers on the check seem to glow with accusation and promise in equal measure. "You need to eat something," Sarah says, setting down a cup of coffee and a plate of toast that Zuri knows she won't touch. Her best friend has been watching her with the careful attention reserved for people standing on the edge of cliffs. "I keep thinking about my parents," Zuri says quietly. "My mom worked double shifts for 6 months to pay for my graduate school application fees. My dad's been driving the same beat-up Ford for 8 years because every spare dollar goes to medical bills or my brother's tuition." She picks up the check for $1 million, the paper feeling impossibly light for something that could change everything. This money would give them the security they've never had. They could retire with dignity, travel, see their grandchildren grow up without worrying about every bill. "And what about you?" Sarah asks gently. "What about what you want?" "I want Minjun," Zuri admits, the words coming out raw and honest. "I want to wake up next to him and learn more about Korean culture and meet his friends and argue with him about architecture over dinner. I want to see if what we have could grow into something that lasts 50 years. But wanting something and being able to have it are two different things." Her phone rings, a number she doesn't recognize. Against her better judgment, she answers. "Ms. Johnson?" The voice is professional, American, unfamiliar. "This is Rebecca Chen from the New York Herald. I'd like to ask you some questions about your relationship with Park Min-jun." Zuri hangs up immediately, her heart pounding. Within minutes, the phone rings again. Another reporter, another news outlet, another request for comment on the scandal that's rocking one of Korea's most powerful families. "How did they get my number?" Zuri asks Sarah, who's already moving to close the blinds. Social media? Public records? Who knows? Sarah peers through the slats and curses. "Zuri, there are photographers outside my building." The magnitude of the situation crashes over Zuri like a wave. This isn't just about her and Minjun anymore. It's become an international news story that's dragging both their families into the spotlight. She thinks about her parents, probably seeing their daughter's face on the internet alongside speculation about gold digging and family scandals. She thinks about Minjun, trying to manage a business empire while tabloids dissect his personal life. Her phone buzzes with a text from her brother Marcus. "Zuri, what the hell is going on? Mom's crying and Dad's yelling at the TV. Call me." Then another from her mother. "Baby, please come home. We need to talk." And then finally a message from Minjun. "I need to see you. I'm downstairs." Zuri looks at Sarah with panic, and something that might be relief warring in her expression. "He's here. Do you want me to tell him you're not—" "No," Zuri interrupts, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "No, I need to face this. I need to hear what he has to say." Sarah buzzes him up, and the minutes it takes for him to climb 3 flights of stairs feel like hours. When the knock finally comes, Zuri opens the door to find Minjun looking like he hasn't slept either. His usually perfect hair is disheveled, his expensive suit is wrinkled, and there's a desperate exhaustion in his eyes that makes her chest ache with sympathy. "Can we talk?" he asks quietly. Zuri steps aside to let him in, acutely aware of Sarah hovering protectively in the background. Minjun's gaze immediately falls on the 2 checks lying on the coffee table, and something devastated crosses his expression. "So it's true," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "My mother made you an offer." "She did," Zuri confirms, not trusting herself to say more. "And you're considering it. It's not a question." Zuri looks at the checks, then at Minjun's face, then at Sarah's worried expression. "Your mother threatened to destroy my career, ruin my family, and make sure I never work in architecture again if I don't take the money and disappear from your life. So yes, I'm considering it." "She threatened you?" Minjun's voice sharpens with anger, and something that might be relief. "She offered me $1 million to relocate to another city and never see you again," Zuri says bluntly. "And when I refused the first offer, she explained exactly how powerful your family is and what they can do to people who get in their way." Minjun sinks onto the couch across from her, his head in his hands. I'm so sorry, Zuri. I never wanted you to be hurt by any of this. But I am hurt by it, Zuri replies, her voice growing stronger with anger. I'm hurt by the fact that your mother thinks I'm some kind of gold digger. I'm hurt by the fact that reporters are calling me for quotes about our scandalous relationship. I'm hurt by the fact that my parents are seeing their daughter's face on the news alongside speculation about international family drama. What can I do? Minjun asks desperately. How can I fix this? Can you fix it? Zuri challenges. Can you make your mother accept me? Can you guarantee that your family won't try to destroy my life if we stay together? Can you promise me that in 6 months or a year, when the novelty wears off and the family pressure becomes unbearable, you won't decide that duty is more important than love? I don't know, Minjun admits, and the honesty in his voice is both devastating and somehow reassuring. I can't promise you that my family will ever fully accept you, or that being with me won't come with complications and challenges that most couples never face. But I can promise you this. I love you, Zuri. Not as some rebellion against my family's expectations, not as a temporary escape from my responsibilities, but as the woman who made me realize that I want to write my own story instead of living the one other people have written for me. He reaches across the coffee table and takes her hands, his fingers warm and steady, despite the tremor she can hear in his voice. I've spent my entire life being the dutiful son, making decisions based on what's best for the company, the family, the grand business strategy that was mapped out before I was even born. And I was resigned to that life, thought it was enough, until I met you. Minjun, Zuri begins, but he continues. I talked to my father this morning. I told him I was willing to step down as heir to the company if that's what it takes to be with you. The words hit Zuri like a physical blow. You what? I told him I'd give up my inheritance, my position in the company, everything I was supposed to inherit, if that's the price of choosing my own life. Minjun's voice is steady now, certain. Because Zuri, I realized something when I thought I was losing you. All the money, all the power, all the business empire. None of it means anything if I have to spend my life pretending to be someone I'm not. Sarah makes a small sound from the kitchen doorway, but neither Zuri nor Minjun looks away from each other. But that's not fair to you, Zuri whispers. I can't let you sacrifice everything you've worked for. You're not letting me do anything, Minjun interrupts gently. This is my choice. For the first time in my life, this is entirely my choice. And I'm choosing you, Zuri. I'm choosing love over duty, authenticity over expectation, my own happiness over everyone else's plans for my life. Zuri stares at him. This man who's willing to give up billions of dollars and a corporate empire to be with her, and feels something shift fundamentally in her chest. The checks on the coffee table suddenly seem insignificant compared to the magnitude of what he's offering. Not money, but himself, completely and without reservation. What does that mean for us? She asks quietly. It means we figure it out together, Minjun says. It means we face whatever comes next as partners, not as people trying to navigate impossible family politics alone. It means we stop letting other people define what our love is worth. He stands up and walks to the coffee table, picking up both checks. Before Zuri can protest, he tears them in half, then in half again, letting the pieces fall to the floor like expensive confetti. Minjun, Zuri gasps. My family's money can't buy your love, he says quietly. And it can't buy your absence from my life either. But as the torn checks flutter to the floor, neither of them realizes that Mrs. Park has been monitoring every news report, every social media post, every development in what the Korean press is now calling the scandal that could topple a dynasty. And she has one final move that will either end their relationship forever or force them to choose each other in the most public way possible. The Park Industries boardroom in Seoul buzzes with tension so thick it could be carved with a knife. Mrs. Park Hye-jin sits at the head of the conference table, surrounded by board members, family advisors, and media consultants who have been summoned for an emergency meeting to address what Korean business news is calling the crisis that threatens the foundation of one of the nation's most powerful chaebols. The wall-mounted screens display a collection of international headlines that make Mrs. Park's jaw tighten with controlled fury. Korean heir chooses love over duty. Park Industries stock falls amid family scandal. Interracial romance rocks business empire. The photos accompanying the articles show Min-jun and Zuri at various moments, sharing dinner, walking in the rain, the intimate forehead kiss that started this entire public spectacle. The Seoul Stock Exchange opened down 8% this morning, reports the chief financial officer, his voice carefully neutral despite the catastrophic implications. International investors are questioning the stability of family leadership, and the Yu family has formally suspended all merger negotiations pending resolution of the succession question. Mrs. Park's perfectly manicured fingers drum once against the mahogany table, the only outward sign of the volcanic rage building beneath her composed exterior. 40 years of careful planning, strategic marriages, and calculated business alliances are crumbling because her son has decided to prioritize his feelings over his responsibilities. "What are our options?" she asks, her voice carrying the lethal calm that has made grown men weep in corporate negotiations. Legally, Min-jun can step down as heir, the family's chief counsel explains reluctantly. The succession documents allow for voluntary abdication, though it would require board approval and a complete restructuring of the company's leadership pipeline. "And if he refuses to step down but also refuses to end this relationship?" Mrs. Park inquires. "Then we face a prolonged public relations nightmare that could destabilize not just our company, but several allied business groups," the media consultant interjects. "The Korean press is treating this as a soap opera, but the international business community is watching to see how we handle family governance issues. Our response will set precedents for how chaebol families manage personal versus professional obligations." Mrs. Park's phone buzzes with a message from James in New York. "Min-jun has called a press conference for this afternoon. I don't know what he plans to announce, but he's requested that all major Korean media outlets be invited." The room falls silent as Mrs. Park processes this information. A press conference means Min-jun is preparing to make his choice public, to force a resolution that leaves no room for private family negotiations. He's essentially declaring war on the system that raised him, in the most visible forum possible. "Get me a flight to New York," Mrs. Park instructs her assistant. "If my son wants to make a public spectacle of this situation, then I'll ensure he understands exactly what he's destroying." "Aomioni," the chief counsel says carefully. "Perhaps it would be better to let him make his announcement and then respond from Seoul. A public confrontation in front of American media could escalate." "Could escalate?" Mrs. Park's laugh is sharp as winter wind. "Mr. Cho, my son is about to either destroy 4 generations of family legacy or publicly humiliate a young woman who doesn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire of our family politics. Either outcome requires my presence." She stands, smoothing her tailored jacket with the precise movements that have become second nature over decades of high-stakes negotiations. "Prepare a statement acknowledging that Park Industries respects Min-jun's right to make personal choices, while also affirming the company's commitment to stable leadership regardless of family circumstances. And contact the Yu family. Arrange a private meeting to discuss alternative partnership structures that don't require marriage alliances." The room exchanges glances that acknowledge what Mrs. Park hasn't said explicitly. She's preparing for the possibility that Min-jun will choose love over duty, and she's ensuring that Park Industries survives the decision regardless of its emotional cost to the family. As her private jet prepares for takeoff at Incheon International Airport, Mrs. Park stares out the window at the Seoul skyline, the city her family helped build. The business district where Park Industries headquarters rises like a monument to 4 generations of ambition and sacrifice. Everything her grandfather achieved after fleeing North Korea with nothing but determination. Everything her father built during the country's rapid industrialization. Everything she's protected and expanded through decades of careful planning and ruthless decision-making. All of it threatened by her son's decision to prioritize personal happiness over family legacy. But as the plane lifts off, carrying her toward what might be the most important confrontation of her life, Mrs. Park doesn't know that Minjun's press conference will reveal a truth that changes everything she believes about love, duty, and the price of building empires on other people's sacrifices. And she has no idea that Zuri Johnson, the woman she's tried so hard to remove from her son's life, is about to become the catalyst for a conversation that forces the entire Park family to confront what they've lost in their pursuit of power, and what they might be able to reclaim if they're brave enough to choose connection over control. The plane disappears into the clouds, carrying Mrs. Park toward a reckoning that will either save her family or finally teach her that some things are more valuable than billion-dollar business empires. But the biggest surprise is still coming, because Minjun's press conference won't be what anyone expects, and the choice he announces will shock even the woman who raised him to believe that duty always trumps desire. The press conference takes place in the main conference room of Park Industries' Manhattan headquarters, transformed for the occasion into a media circus that would have been unimaginable just a week ago. Reporters from major Korean networks sit alongside American business journalists, their cameras focused on the simple podium where Minjun will either destroy his family's legacy or sacrifice the woman he loves to preserve it. Zuri stands in the back of the room, having arrived despite Minjun's gentle suggestion that she might want to avoid the media attention. She wears a simple black dress that makes her look both professional and defiant, a woman who refuses to hide from the consequences of loving someone whose life operates by rules she never agreed to follow. Sarah stands beside her, providing silent support and occasionally glaring at reporters who stare too long. Minjun enters the room, wearing a dark navy suit that somehow makes him look both more authoritative and more vulnerable than Zuri has ever seen him. He moves to the podium, with the quiet confidence she's come to associate with his corporate persona. But when his eyes find hers across the crowded room, she sees the man who tore up million-dollar checks rather than let his family's money define their relationship. "Ladies and gentlemen," he begins in English, then repeats the greeting in Korean. "Thank you for coming today. I know there has been significant speculation about my personal life and its impact on Park Industries' business operations. I'd like to address these concerns directly." The room falls silent, except for the quiet whir of cameras. Zuri can see Mrs. Park entering through a side door, having arrived from Seoul just hours ago. Her expression is unreadable, but her posture suggests a woman preparing for battle. "For the past month, I have been in a relationship with Ms. Zuri Johnson, an accomplished architect whose work on sustainable urban development represents the kind of innovative thinking our company values," Minjun continues, his voice steady, despite the magnitude of what he's about to announce. "This relationship has caused concern within my family because it deviates from traditional expectations about marriage alliances and business partnerships." A murmur runs through the crowd of reporters. Zuri can feel her heart pounding against her ribs as she waits for Minjun to announce his choice. Her or his inheritance, love or duty, personal happiness, or family responsibility. "I want to address the speculation that my feelings for Ms. Johnson are somehow irresponsible or detrimental to Park Industries' operations," Minjun says, his gaze moving across the room to include both the Korean and American media representatives. "Love, real love, doesn't make a person less capable of business leadership. It makes them more human, more connected to the communities they serve, more motivated to build something meaningful rather than just profitable." Mrs. Park takes a step forward, clearly preparing to intervene if her son's announcement threatens everything she's worked to protect. "However," Minjun continues, "I also understand the concerns about stability and continuity that have been raised by our board members and business partners, which is why I want to make the following announcement." The room holds its collective breath. "I am not stepping down as heir to Park Industries," Minjun declares, his voice growing stronger with each word. "But I am proposing a fundamental change to how our family business operates. No more arranged marriages. No more business alliances that require personal sacrifices from family members. No more tradition that prioritizes corporate strategy over individual happiness." The silence that follows is deafening. Zuri can see Mrs. Park's face go completely pale, can feel the shock rippling through the room like an earthquake. "Instead," Minjun continues, I propose that Park Industries become a model for how family businesses can honor both legacy and personal choice. My relationship with Ms. Johnson will continue, and if she'll have me, I intend to marry her. Not as part of any business arrangement, but because she's the woman I choose to spend my life with. Min-jun? Mrs. Park's voice cuts through the room, but he raises a hand, asking for permission to continue. But I also recognize that change requires sacrifice from everyone involved, not just from the people whose traditions are being challenged. Which is why I'm announcing that Park Industries will establish a foundation dedicated to supporting architectural initiatives that promote cultural understanding and sustainable development. Ms. Johnson will direct this foundation, ensuring that her expertise benefits communities around the world, rather than being limited to our business interests. Zuri stares at him, her mind reeling. He's not just choosing her. He's creating a framework that honors both his family's business interests and their personal relationship, a solution that no one else had imagined possible. Furthermore, Min-jun adds, I want to address my mother, Park Hye-jin, directly. He looks across the room at Mrs. Park, and his voice softens with genuine affection, despite the public nature of the confrontation. Amayoni, you raised me to believe that duty means sacrifice, that leadership requires giving up personal desires for the greater good. But you also raised me to be innovative, to find solutions that others can't see, to build bridges instead of walls. Mrs. Park's composed expression begins to crack, revealing something vulnerable beneath the corporate mask. I love Zuri Johnson, Min-jun declares, his voice carrying across the silent room like a bell. But I also love my family, my heritage, and the company that 4 generations of Parks have built. I refuse to believe that choosing one requires abandoning the others. And I'm asking, publicly, in front of everyone who matters to our business and our future, for your support in proving that love and duty can coexist. The room erupts in questions from reporters, but Min-jun's attention remains fixed on his mother. Zuri watches the older woman struggle with emotions that 4 decades of corporate leadership have taught her to suppress. Then, in a move that shocks everyone in the room, Mrs. Park walks to the podium. Min-jun steps aside, allowing his mother to address the crowd. My son, Mrs. Park begins in English, then switches to Korean before returning to English, has always been more innovative than I gave him credit for. Her voice carries 40 years of authority, but also something new, a willingness to admit uncertainty. Building a business empire requires making difficult choices, sometimes choices that prioritize long-term stability over short-term happiness. But perhaps it also requires knowing when to stop making those choices for other people. She looks directly at Zuri, and for the first time, her expression doesn't carry judgment or calculation. Just a mother's exhausted recognition that her son has become a man whose happiness might require different choices than the ones she would make. Ms. Johnson, Mrs. Park says, her voice carrying across the room, I owe you an apology. I treated you like a threat to my family's future, when I should have recognized you as potentially part of that future. If my son believes you are the woman who will make him a better leader, a better man, then I will trust his judgment. The admission costs her something. Zuri can see it in the way Mrs. Park's shoulders tighten, in the barely perceptible tremor in her voice. But she continues. However, Mrs. Park adds, and Zuri braces for the conditions that will surely follow. I hope you understand that joining our family means accepting responsibility for more than just my son's happiness. It means becoming part of a legacy that affects thousands of people's livelihoods, part of a tradition that has been built through generations of sacrifice and commitment. I understand, Zuri says, stepping forward from the back of the room. Her voice carries clearly despite her nervousness. And I want you to know that I never asked Min-jun to choose between his family and me. What I asked for was the chance to prove that I could be an asset to your family's legacy, not a threat to it. The room watches in fascination as these 2 women, from completely different worlds, thrown together by love and circumstance, attempt to find common ground in front of an international audience. Then perhaps, Mrs. Park says carefully, we should discuss how to make that happen. privately, as families should. The press conference ends with more questions than answers, but something fundamental has shifted. As the reporters file out, discussing the unprecedented nature of what they've just witnessed, Zuri finds herself standing face-to-face with Mrs. Park, while Min-jun watches nervously from the podium. "This won't be easy," Mrs. Park says quietly. "Integrating into a chaebol family requires understanding traditions, hierarchies, and expectations that take years to learn. Are you prepared for that kind of commitment?" "I'm prepared to try," Zuri replies honestly. "I'm prepared to learn, to make mistakes, to earn your respect instead of demanding it. But I'm also prepared to love your son in a way that makes him stronger, not weaker." For the first time since they've met, Mrs. Park almost smiles. "Then I suppose," she says, extending her hand for a formal handshake, "we have work to do." But as Zuri shakes Mrs. Park's hand, sealing a truce that seemed impossible just hours ago, none of them realize that the real test of their new alliance is still coming, and that proving love can coexist with duty will require all of them to change in ways they never expected. 6 months later, the October rain in Manhattan creates the same liquid mirrors on the street as it did the night Zuri and Min-jun first shared bulgogi and changed each other's lives forever. But tonight, the Korean BBQ food truck has been transformed into something magical. Surrounded by white lanterns and autumn flowers, it serves as the centerpiece for the most unconventional wedding ceremony Manhattan has ever witnessed. Zuri stands under a traditional Korean wedding canopy that Min-jun's mother insisted upon, wearing a dress that she designed herself, a fusion of Western elegance and Korean tradition that somehow perfectly captures the balance their relationship has found between two worlds. Her parents, Dorothy and William Johnson, sit in the front row looking overwhelmed but proud, while Min-jun's extended family from Seoul occupies the opposite side with the reserved dignity that comes from generations of corporate leadership. 6 months ago, if someone had told me I'd be getting married in front of a food truck in the rain, I would have suggested they seek professional help. Zuri whispers to Sarah, who's serving as her maid of honor and trying not to cry through her carefully applied makeup. 6 months ago, if someone had told you that you'd fall in love with a Korean billionaire who was willing to risk everything for you, you would have suggested the same thing, Sarah replies, adjusting Zuri's veil with the gentle precision that comes from years of friendship. But here we are. Min-jun emerges from a small tent that serves as his preparation area, wearing a modern suit that incorporates subtle elements of traditional Korean formal wear, a compromise that reflects the negotiations that have defined their engagement. He looks nervous and exhilarated in equal measure, like a man who's about to make the most important decision of his life in front of everyone who matters to him. The past 6 months have been a whirlwind of cultural education, family diplomacy, and business restructuring that sometimes left both Zuri and Min-jun wondering if love was really worth this level of complexity. Zuri spent 3 weeks in Seoul, learning about chaebol culture and Korean business etiquette while staying in the Park family compound and navigating the subtle hierarchies that govern every interaction. Min-jun, meanwhile, visited Detroit and spent time with the Johnson family, learning about American working-class values and discovering that financial security comes in many forms, not all of them measured in dollars. "Are you ready?" Min-jun asks as he approaches, his voice carrying the same mixture of certainty and amazement that has characterized every major decision in their relationship. "As ready as someone can be for marrying into a family that owns half of Korea," Zuri replies with a smile that acknowledges both the absurdity and the beauty of their situation. Mrs. Park rises from her seat and approaches the couple, carrying a small silk bag that contains the traditional Korean wedding gift, keys to the house that will become their first home together, a penthouse apartment in Manhattan that somehow manages to feel both luxurious and welcoming. But more importantly, she carries an expression that would have been unimaginable 6 months ago, genuine warmth mixed with the kind of protective love that mothers reserve for their children's happiness. In Korean tradition, Mrs. Park announces to the assembled guests, speaking in English for the benefit of both families. Marriage is not just the joining of two individuals, but the creation of a new branch on two family trees. Today, our family tree grows stronger because of the love between Min-jun and Zuri. She turns to Zuri with a smile that has taken months to develop, built through countless dinners, business meetings, and gradually increasing trust. "Welcome to our family, daughter." The word daughter, spoken in Mrs. Park's carefully accented English, carries a weight that makes Zuri's eyes fill with tears. 6 months ago, this woman had tried to pay her to disappear from Minjun's life. Now she's using the most intimate family term possible to acknowledge Zuri's place in the Park legacy. The ceremony itself is brief but meaningful, a mixture of American and Korean traditions that reflects the compromise and creativity their relationship has required. When the officiant asks for their vows, Minjun speaks first, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "Zuri, you taught me that love isn't about abandoning responsibility. It's about choosing what to be responsible for. You taught me that strength comes from authenticity, not from living up to other people's expectations. And you taught me that the best traditions are the ones we create together, not the ones we inherit without question." Zuri's vows, spoken through tears that she doesn't bother to hide, focus on the lessons the past year has taught her. "Minjun, you showed me that love doesn't require giving up your dreams. It requires finding someone who wants to build dreams with you. You taught me that cultural differences are strengths when they're approached with curiosity instead of fear. And you taught me that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is trust that someone will catch you when you fall." As they exchange rings, his grandfather's wedding band for Minjun, and a ring he designed himself that incorporates elements from both Korean and American traditions for Zuri, the rain begins to intensify. But instead of sending the guests running for cover, the downpour creates a sense of intimacy and shared adventure that perfectly captures the spirit of their relationship. When the officiant pronounces them married, Minjun pulls Zuri close for their first kiss as husband and wife. And just as he leans in, Zuri deliberately lets herself slip slightly on the wet pavement, a playful recreation of the moment that started everything, this time entirely intentional. Minjun catches her, just as he did 6 months ago, but this time they're both laughing, both aware of the poetry in the repetition. As the assembled guests cheer, and the rain creates a curtain around them, Zuri looks into her husband's eyes and sees not just love, but partnership, adventure, and the promise of a life built on choices they've made together, rather than expectations imposed by others. "So," she whispers against his lips, "how does it feel to be married to someone who's definitely going to complicate your corporate board meetings?" "Like the best decision I ever made," Minjun replies, spinning her in the rain while both their families watch and applaud the union that once seemed impossible. The reception, held in the Park Industries building that has been transformed into a celebration space, brings together Minjun's business associates and Zuri's architectural colleagues, Korean dignitaries, and Detroit family friends, creating the kind of cultural fusion that would have been unimaginable without the love that brought these two worlds together. During the traditional Korean ceremony where both families formally acknowledge the marriage, Dorothy Johnson approaches Mrs. Park with the nervous determination of a woman stepping far outside her comfort zone. "I want to thank you," Dorothy says quietly, "for giving my daughter a chance to prove herself, instead of judging her by her background." "I want to thank you," Mrs. Park replies, "for raising a daughter strong enough to challenge our family in the ways we needed to be challenged." The two mothers shake hands. Then, in a gesture that surprises everyone including themselves, embrace, acknowledging that their children's love has made them family in ways that transcend culture, class, and the 1,000 small barriers that society puts between people from different worlds. As the evening winds down, Zuri and Minjun slip away from their own reception to return to the food truck where everything began. The owner, who has become something of a celebrity thanks to his role in their love story, has saved them a container of bulgogi, the same dish they shared on their first accidental date. "Any regrets?" Minjun asks, as they sit at the same plastic table where they first realized they were falling in love. "About marrying a man whose mother tried to buy me off with $1 million check? About joining a family whose business decisions affect thousands of people? About signing up for a lifetime of Korean corporate politics and international media attention?" Zuri pretends to consider this seriously. "Not a single one." "Good," Minjun says, "because I have news that might complicate things further." More complicated than they already are? Zuri laughs. The Seoul office wants us to spend 6 months there next year, helping to establish the Sustainability Foundation and working on the urban development projects we've been planning. Minjun watches her face carefully. It would mean leaving New York, learning even more Korean, diving fully into the culture that you've only experienced from a distance. Zuri considers this, thinking about the year behind them and the adventure ahead. A year ago, she was struggling to save her architectural firm and wondering if she'd ever find love that felt real and sustaining. Now she's married to a man who chose to revolutionize his family's business practices rather than give her up, part of a family that spans 2 continents and 3 generations of accumulated wisdom and wealth. Will there be good Korean BBQ in Seoul? She asks finally. The best in the world, Minjun promises. Then I'm in, Zuri decides. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't get too comfortable with all that corporate power. And I suspect Seoul could use an American architect who's not afraid to ask difficult questions about sustainable development. As they walk home through the rain-washed streets of Manhattan, Minjun carrying the umbrella that has become their symbol and Zuri's hand secure in his, neither of them knows exactly what challenges their marriage will face or what adventures their partnership will create. But they know that love, real love, isn't about finding someone who makes life simple. It's about finding someone who makes the complications worth navigating together. Their story began with a stumble in the rain and a shared meal from a food truck. It continues with the promise that some connections transcend every barrier society places between hearts, and that sometimes the most courageous thing 2 people can do is choose each other despite every logical reason to walk away. In 6 months, they'll be navigating the boardrooms of Seoul and the cultural complexities of building a life between 2 worlds. In 6 years, they'll be raising children who speak 3 languages and understand that family can be defined by love rather than just by blood or tradition. In 60 years, they'll be the grandparents who tell stories about the time love conquered a business empire and proved that the heart recognizes no borders, no hierarchies, no limits except the ones we impose on ourselves. But tonight, they're just Zuri and Minjun Park, walking home in the rain, carrying the keys to their first apartment, and the knowledge that sometimes fate really does have a sense of humor, and that the best love stories are the ones that begin with someone catching you when you fall, and end with both of you choosing to keep falling together, over and over, for the rest of your lives.